right now. There's no waiting for something to happen, no point in the future to get to. All you have ever longed for is here in this moment, right now. My friend Peter tells me about weasel words. Should is the weasel word in the sentences. It should only take half an hour to install this new program in your computer. The renovation should be completed by the end of the week. Just is the weasel word and the increasingly popular admonishment. You just have to be in the now. Implies that it is an easy and simple thing to do. My question is, why isn't it easy? Is it simply the nature of our minds to wander away from the present moment? To continually review, analyze, and judge the past, or anticipate, worry about, or imagine the future? Certainly my mind does all of these, more or less continually, but surely the intelligent life force that has created so intricate and wonderful a universe would not make the one thing necessary for our liberation from suffering and ignorance dependent on an ability we simply do not have or must struggle ceaselessly to develop. That would be like making our happiness dependent on making a perfect jump shot and then making our maximum height 2 feet tall. Since I do not experience a hint of any such cruelty or sadism in the beloved that calls me home, and I do experience an expanded ability to love well and accept my human life when I'm fully present, I find myself searching for another explanation for why it is so difficult for us to be in the now. Of course, on one level, we are always in the present moment. The past is gone and the future does not yet exist. Past and future memories and dreams are ideas in our minds, ideas that are happening in the only moment we have access to now. It's about being in the present, awake, fully in this moment and what holds. But for many of us, our lives, our moments are very full and very fast moving, making it difficult for us to see, let alone be with it. Discouraged by this, I imagine that I would have to live like an inherent Zen monk to be fully present, and not all of us are suited or called to live a life wandering solitude. By the end of my 40 days of ceremonial retreat, of long quiet periods of solitude and prayer and meditation, of slowing down and following an intuitive pull of the moment, I feel I have been shown and have learned a new way of living, a way of being more fully present with myself and the world, and then I'm tested, plunged back into the waters of an ordinary human life. Well, I'm not claiming that the grandmothers or God or the great mystery set up the test, but life has a way of testing us, particularly when we're feeling self-congratulatory or getting something. Or maybe it just feels like it's testing us when we notice that we seem to have lost track of what we thought we got so clearly, not only a moment or a day before. I get that the task is to continually be here now, fully with myself and the world. The challenge is to do this in human life. The day after my 40-day retreat is over, life suddenly speeds up. Having bought a new home, Jeff and I become embroiled in ongoing exchanges and seemingly endless paperwork with mortgage brokers, real estate agents, and lawyers. There's a well to be tested, surveys to be found, inspections to be made. Jeff's place needs to be readied for sale and put on the market. We had already set our upcoming wedding date for October, so there's a wedding to plan for in 6 weeks. Nathan, my younger son, receives notice that he can have a place in the university residence if he moves in immediately. So in 24 hours, we pack him up and move him in. All of this, of course, just as I'm to start writing a book. Writing that I've been mulling and anticipating doing for the last year. I know that writing a book about hearing and heeding the call at the center of our lives has to be done while hearing and heeding the call at the center of my life. The call to remember why I'm here and to be consciously aware of the sacred mystery within and around me, and let my actions flow from the silent knowing that the spacious center, there can be no separation between what I'm writing and how I'm writing it. So I do not wait for things to slow down. I do not seek to write in isolation. I start to write in the midst of an increasingly messy human life. And things just keep accelerating. Today, 2 months later, I'm writing a chapter about being present in the moment. But before I sat down this morning to ponder the now, I called the telephone company, propane supplier, post office, electric company, and internet server to ensure upcoming services in our new home. I contacted the lawyer about signing papers next weekend, finalized the detail of a new bank account, called the folks at the home insurance company, and tried to find a buyer for my piano. All this, of course, in preparation for the move in 5 weeks. I'm surrounded by the chaos of half-sorted closets, labeled boxes, and piles of things that should be given away or sold. At the same time, the other demands of life continue. I answered 24 emails this morning, talked to my son about a paper he is writing on the relationship between the God of Genesis and our human frailties, and set aside an hour to call a woman I know who is ill in the hospital, feeling guilty that I'm not going to get to see her, wanting to offer some comfort in a difficult time. It is tempting to simply give up. I'm being mindfully present until we have moved and settled into a new home. But when I review the last few years, although there have been a few periods quite as full and chaotic, I can see the pattern of wanting to wait until circumstances change before I turn my full attention to simply being here. Although the particulars change, the pattern does not. I thought it would be easier to be present when I finished the book tour for the last book, when I was home more and things slowed down. But then I was drawn to write this book, and there was the wedding and the impending move. Before that, I told myself I would slow down once the previous book was finished. But then, of course, I went on a book tour and was fortunate enough to be offered a number of speaking engagements. I can trace the postponement of consciously being present back for years like this, through periods of wanting to finish a course, anticipating a child growing into the next stage of independence, or looking forward to the completion of a work project. And of course, in the meantime, life is going by and I'm not fully in it. I'm too busy doing. Slowly it begins to dawn on me that this is it. This is the way life is, sometimes fast, sometimes slower, but always filled with both a multitude of daily requirements to keep life and limb together, and 1,000 other things we choose. Sometimes plans do need to be made, and the focus of plans by definition is on something, a meal, a gathering, a move. That is not happening now. That will happen in the future. But the plans, making the list, calling the phone company, packing a box, like everything else, happen in the only moment we have access to now. The trick is to pack the box without simultaneously reviewing the conversation I just had with the telephone company representative and making the list of what I have to do tomorrow. The task is just to pack the box, or just to type these words, or just to speak to the service person on the phone in this moment, all the while keeping one part of my attention on the spacious stillness within. Both my personality and my culture take pride in the multitasking skills, but if we cannot bring our full attention to the present moment when we're doing one thing, it is doubtful that we will be able to do so when we're simultaneously doing 3. Multitasking and mindfulness are, for most of us, mutually exclusive. Of course, doing one thing at a time will probably slow things down. The minute I bring my full attention to this moment, letting go of mentally keeping track of what has happened or needs to happen next, I become aware of my body. I feel my breath and the stiffness in my back, and I remember that I have not done my yoga yet this morning. I let my shoulders drop. I'm aware of my tiredness and the fear that I won't get it all done, or that I will get sick getting it done and I'll forget something critical. And if I stay present with these feelings, letting my hands pause as they pack a box or move over the keyboard and just take 3 deep breaths, I'm aware of another feeling that I do not want to touch. A feeling of something welling up inside me that I've been keeping at bay for weeks. Herein lies the answer to my question. Why is it so difficult for us to bring our full attention to the present moment and to be here and now? Because there are aspects of reality that we do not want to accept, that we cannot avoid being with if we are present. I've lived in this city for 30 years. I've given birth to and raised my sons here. I've helped build and participate in a community of friends and students who have shared a history of spiritual practice and ceremony not easily found or quickly created elsewhere. Leaving this place means leaving what is familiar and loved. It means leaving my friends. It means leaving my sons. My younger son, Nathan, is living in the residence at the university near the northern edge of the city and has been coming home every weekend. He will not be able to do this as frequently at my new home. My older son, Brennan, attends a downtown university and lives in his father's townhouse 8 doors away from mine, so I see him several times a week. His scheduled daily classes and weekend employment means he will be able to make only infrequent visits to my new home. They're 19 and 22, old enough to be on their own, particularly with ongoing love and support they will continue to receive from both their father and me. Why then does my chest ache? So when I come fully into the present moment, when I pause and look at the photographs, unpacking pictures of two small boys laughing in Halloween costumes or hunting Easter eggs, faces smeared with chocolate. Other people tell me that the move is well timed, that it will increase my son's independence, my freedom, and their ability to move more deeply into their own lives, and I know that they're right. That's the women whose children are slightly older than my own, the women who have recently moved out of what was the family home, or have seen their children leave in the last year or two, who look at me silently and nod, knowing their eyes suddenly shining with held-back tears. They know the sense of loss that rips through me now. I want to slow it down. I want to remember it all, the feel of their bodies, heavy and sweet, as I carried them to bed when they were small. High-pitched squeals and laughter as I chased them up the stairs. The love and the fierce arguments. I want a chance to make up for all the ways in which I was not the parent I wanted to be. All the times I was too busy, or too tired, or too wrapped in my own fears for the future to love them well. Years ago, I heard someone quote the Zen master Suzuki Roshi. We don't need to learn to let go. We just need to recognize what is already gone. This is the reality we must face in every moment we're present. The reality of impermanence, the reality of continual change, and the reality of the loss that sits at the center of human life. No two nows are the same. It is the now we lack the ability to be present. It is that we move away from it in our desire to deny or at least minimize the experience of change and loss that is life. In our war with reality of impermanence, we move away from the now and so lose access to the essential and infinite stillness within, which could sustain us when those losses are painful. To live in the now, we have to end our war with this reality. We have to accept the perpetual losses, small and large, that are a consistent part of what it is to be human. A dear friend going through the change too big to ignore in her life tells me I hate change. And I think to myself this is the same as saying I hate life, or I don't want to be in a human life. Life as a human is being in constant change, and because we love as human beings, change brings with it a sense of loss. And if we move away from this pain by moving away from the present moment, we miss the lives we have been given. As I come into the present moment and I feel my own grief over the current change in my life, I keep thinking I must be doing something wrong. After all, this is change that is chosen and good. Jeff and I have found a wonderful home in a setting that feeds my desire to live with more awareness of the earth beneath me, and I want to live there, and I want to live with him. My sons are doing well, and I can continue to support them from a distance and see them regularly. Sons must leave their mothers' houses and go into the world. I do not wish for this to be different. I keep thinking that if I were doing it right, it would be more spiritual. I would not be feeling this grief. I keep thinking that if I could accept the reality of impermanence once and for all, I would not feel this ache. Living in the now does not mean ending the war on surrendering to what was once and for all. Wanting once and for all is part of what pulls me into a war in the first place. It's about letting go of wanting once and for all solutions that we think we will extend through time to our imagined futures, about ending the war I'm fighting with reality and the only moment I have access to. This moment, with this breath, this inhale I'm taking right now as my fingers move on the keyboard. This exhale that leaves my body and this impulse to inhale again. And when I end my war with impermanence, when I stop pushing away the loss that it is, I'm fed, supported, and sustained by an awareness of the still spaciousness within that can hold and be with it all. Sometimes, the losses in our lives are larger and harder than the change brought by our grown sons leaving home. Leslie is a 40-year-old woman who has been living with cancer for over 10 years. I met her when she first came to some talks I gave in 1986, and I have seen her occasionally since. Her cancer has advanced. She has a wound that will not heal in her groin, and she cannot feel her legs completely or walk unassisted. And there are blood clots in her arteries, and the doctors fear will go into her lungs. I go to see her, to sit with her for a time. We laugh when we talk about our lives, and then after a few minutes of shared silence, she asks me what I think she should do. The doctors can recommend no treatment that will promise a cure. Of course, one course of treatment may prolong her life but will cause pain, while another will make her more comfortable but is almost guaranteed to shorten her life. She does not want to die. She has investigated alternative treatments, some of which are costly and difficult to get, none of which can guarantee recovery. She must also choose whether or not to remain in her own home, with a succession of volunteers coming to help when they can, or go to a hospice, or to stay with family where there will be constant care. She tells me about her fear and confusion and looks at me now bewildered. How do I decide, she asks. How do I know what course of treatment to take? Where the best place for me to be is. I want to live, so I should keep fighting, keep trying anything that has a chance of prolonging my life, right? When is it okay to let go? I sit for a moment and I feel both her tiredness and her desire to live. When I answer, I speak slowly, feeling my way into what I know is true. I can't tell you what to do because I don't know what you should do. But I do think that it is always okay to let go, to stop fighting with what is and just be with it. The truth, what is that you're very ill, and we don't know how long you have or what the quality of that time will be. No one can know this for you or for ourselves, not you or me or the doctors or the alternative healthcare practitioners. I pause and I wait, feeling my breath moving in and out of my body before I continue. But I have incredible faith in your ability to know for yourself what you need to do in this moment. If you can sit with the not knowing and with the fear and confusion and uncertainty that it raises, if you can really be with it, just breathing and just being, you will know that you will know if this is a moment to try treatment or to simply be still. I think that this has to be a present moment decision, not a choice you make once for the rest of your life, however long that may be. And if you can be present with yourself, you will know if you need to breathe through the pain or to ask for pain medication. You will know if you need to be at home or if you need to go where someone will. You need to go. Where there will be someone with you all the time. What is true right now, what is the best choice for you in this moment, today, may not be true, may not be what you need tomorrow. Today, you may want to be still and present and just resting without doing anything. Tomorrow, you may want to say, bring on the treatment. You may want to try something that may or may not work the way you hope it will. All I know for sure is that you can take the time you need to find the deep stillness within you and make your choice from that stillness. You cannot make the wrong choice. You can only make the choice that is the best one for you at the moment. What is true for Leslie is true for us all, although it is sometimes clearer when we're faced with life-threatening illness. Here's the only place, and now is the only moment in which to look for how to live and who and what you are. Going home, knowing who and what we are, and why we're here is not something we have to earn by getting it right, choosing perfectly or trying harder. Sometimes work is required. Sometimes pain is endured. Loss is an inevitable part of being human. The reality we live in is impermanent, constant changing. Leslie has had the fact of her mortality shoved up against her face, but the truth is that none of us knows how long we have here. To be human is to be mortal. It is to participate in the constantly changing inner and outer realities. Knowing this, facing the impermanence of our reality, we may be tempted to move away from loving deeply to protect ourselves from feeling the inevitable losses so acutely. But that would simply be fighting another aspect of the reality of being human, the reality of loving fiercely and of appreciating deeply, and so being attached to the beauty we experience in the people and places and things that we love. Being human means that we are not detached. We are deeply connected and affected by life. Mary Oliver, in her poem In Blackwater Woods, writes about the choice that we have to make if we are to live present in a human life, in this constant cycle of life and death in our lives. Look, the trees are turning. Their own bodies into pillars of light are giving off rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders, ponds, of every pond, no matter what it is. Its name, nameless now, every year, everything I've ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires, the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. You must be able to do 3 things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. This is what it means to answer the call, to commit to being here in a human life, as a human being, to love what is mortal, and to love what is unpredictably changing and impermanent, to love while being mindful that everything, every person, every place, every moment we love will change and pass, but to love anyway, and to love what you love fiercely, no holds barred, nothing held back, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your own life depends on it, knowing that the reality of who and what you are as a human being is inseparable from this body, this world, and this life you claim to inhabit fully. And when it comes time to let go, and no one can ever predict or control when that time will come, to let go, I'm in awe of our human capacity, of my capacity, your capacity to do this, to choose to love deeply and fiercely, conscious of the impermanence of all that we love, and when the time comes to let it go. It is our human nature, that marriage of essence, the pure and sacred presence that is the source of and greater than the sum of all things and ego, our individual preferences and attachments that give us the ability to do this. If we commit fully to being human, if we say yes to being here now, this is what it is like to love, to experience loss, and to refuse to step away from the realities of love and loss by seeking to live a more spiritual life, by looking for a way to get it right and to do it perfectly, to answer the call, to find out what we long for, to be who we are is to accept the beauty and the challenge of being here now. Thanks for coming.